Mama. Welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and this podcast exists to help scholarly mamas like you to achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters most. Here, we're changing the overwhelm, juggle, struggle narrative around what it means to be a mama on an academic journey to one of empowerment, fulfillment, and purposeful success. So how do we successfully navigate these journeys? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Let's begin by saying yes to creating a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, because that's when we truly become purposefully whole. So get ready for the most non-traditional, unconventional, and revolutionary approach to PhD motherhood, because one thing I have learned over my many years of experience on this journey is that if you want something different, you have to do something different. But you must be brave enough to think differently first. So, Mama, are you in? Fabulous. Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Hey, mamas. Oh my goodness. Can you believe that this is episode 100? I cannot even believe that. But we have reached 100 podcast episodes on this podcast. I cannot even get my head around that. But honestly, I have enjoyed every moment of this journey. When I started this podcast, before it even submitted my PhD thesis, I had no idea that I would be able to keep this going for as long as I have. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to connect with you here week after week. I know that this podcast has helped so many people. I receive so many messages from people who say, I've listened to your podcast. I am so grateful for your community and your space and the things that you're doing here on this channel and in this space. And I just give so much thanks for those messages because it reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Sometimes I will be very honest with you. It can get really discouraging because people will come and they'll listen and I will never know. I will never know that it's touched you. And so if this podcast has been impactful for you in any way, please, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a kind review wherever you listen to this podcast so that not only I will know, but also all the other mamas who are looking for some inspiration along their journey. This journey can get really tough sometimes, and it's, so handy to not feel alone. But yes, 100 podcast episodes. Oh my goodness. I am so grateful. I give so much thanks for all of this. So a couple of weeks ago, I was lecturing a group of students, healthcare students. And in that lecture, I shared my journey from healthcare to health research, doing a PhD and all of that. And this is a lecture that I give every year. As I was updating my slides a few weeks prior to delivering the lecture, when I got to the part where I share what it was like to navigate my PhD as a mama, having 2 of our 3 kids during my PhD, doing this as a mum of 3 and all that. This really got me thinking because a couple of years ago, like many, many, many years ago, I would have skipped past that part. I would have focused on the real deal, the real ins and outs of doing applied research, all that quote unquote important stuff. And I wouldn't have even touched on the bits about what it was like to do this with kids in tow, or what it was like to navigate this, taking multiple maternity breaks and all that, juggling my PhD and real life, and how I was able to still finish well. Because this, and I've had this said to me a couple of times by other people, that this can feel quite peripheral to what is really at stake for scholarly mamas. So it doesn't feel like, the important topics of your PhD or the latest published research in your area, or the latest experimental findings that you've got, or the breakthroughs that you've had in your research or in your PhD. It doesn't feel quite so central to what you're doing. But I will almost argue that thinking about this very differently is really important, because this is really essential. Your role, your identity, your, positionality as doing this as a mama with kids in tow, trying to finish this PhD, trying to better your family and your future, really is so essential to why you show up, why you stay on this journey and continue to show up day after day, and how you show up day after day to work towards those big academic goals that you have. This is essential to that. This whole identity of being a scholarly mama is truly essential to achieving the goals that you have for yourself. And so I continue to include this part of my story in my lecture year after year, because I believe context matters, my story matters, my journey matters. And I really wanted these students to know more than anything that this is possible for them if they choose to pursue this route, even if their circumstances feel complicated to other people. It doesn't matter, because real life is happening for mamas even when they're doing a PhD. And so I wanted these students to know that this circumstance of doing this as a mama or having kids in the middle of your PhD, it doesn't have to be a barrier to their success. So even though belief alone will not create success, obviously, you got to put in the hard work. But success always begins with belief. At least that is my opinion. So my hope is that you will continue to believe in what is also possible for you, and that these students will continue to believe in what is possible for them. So don't keep apologizing for who you are, really, mama, at the core. You can be proud of the fact that you're navigating this PhD as a mama. You're wearing your scholarly mama identity with pride, because you matter, your kids matter, your scholarly mama journey matters. You've got a family to love, kids to love, but you also deserve to finish your PhD well if you want that. So one of the things that this made me think about as well is this idea I say in my intro about, if you want something different, you have to be prepared to do something different, but you have to be prepared to think differently first. And I think this is really central to what I've had to do on my journey, navigating this with all the challenges that I had on there and still being able to finish well. This has been central to what has allowed me to do that. And I was having a conversation with an ex-colleague recently, and she said to me, Michelle, in some ways this may feel to people like this is completely unrelated to, your work and your clinical research work. It may seem completely detached and separate from that. But in many ways, maybe this was always part of your purpose. Maybe it was always part of your journey and the purpose of your journey to be able to support mamas who are navigating a PhD journey and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like this is not possible for them. And when she said that, and this is somebody who has known me for many, many, many years, even before I started my PhD. We worked together as well at one point. And she was saying to me that, she really thinks that this is so amazing, that it's so amazing that I'm able to inspire mamas to be able to pursue their academic life goals. And it really touched me to hear that, because I think a lot of people see this as being unimportant, as, something to kind of just keep to yourself and struggle along. Nobody wants to talk about it. You don't want to have these repeated conversations with your supervisor about why you didn't get something done because the kids weren't sleeping or the kids were sick. You just don't want to have to keep coming back with these stories all the time. But they're not even stories. They're true. It's reality. This is what we deal with on a weekly basis as scholarly mamas. We are navigating complex, I say complex in inverted commas, circumstances, trying to get to the end of our PhD journeys with kids in tow. And so this idea of thinking differently is so important, because, that requires a shift. That requires challenging your own internal assumptions about what matters on this journey. It challenges whether you are actually aligning your actions and your priorities with your values, sometimes that can feel a little bit uncomfortable. It also requires different thinking in the sense that this is not a traditional approach. This is not what people may say. A lot of people will say, oh, you just need to really put your head down and just focus and get it done. And you could always catch up with family stuff later, or you can always come back to all the other things that you want to do later, but you've just got to focus on this. And I think focus is one of those things that as a mama, it forces us to really take a flexible approach to that, because we can't put our lives on hold while we are pursuing our goals. It just doesn't happen. And actually, a lot of people will say that, maybe dads do that. Well, no, many dads, I know my husband as well, who studied while we had young kids, we've kind of taken some turns in terms of pursuing our professional goals. And he had to navigate that with young kids who were waking up at night, and he would wake up at night as well. He wasn't like, I've got my studying to do, I've got my work to do, and so I can't focus on that right now. No, we both had to do that. And so this very much applies to dads as well. Obviously, I'm speaking from a perspective as a mum, so that's why I talk about mamas, but this also applies to dads and all parents who are navigating this journey with kids in tow. And that challenging process of challenging our thoughts requires us to, in many ways, yes, think differently, but also in many ways, really expand our comfort zones and really be comfortable with doing things differently, with taking a different perspective, with staying open and getting very honest with ourselves and being prepared to challenge old mindsets and old routines. And just to illustrate what I mean by this, I mentioned in the previous, I think it was it last week's episode? I can't remember. I think it was last week's episode, where I was talking about our son wanting a pet. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this. The thought of having a pet in the house fills me with so much dread. But, he kept talking about it. He presented his cases and his PowerPoints and did these family presentations, and really has been very subtly trying to convert mommy into wanting a pet and this idea of having a pet. So he's been really quite respectfully and kindly trying to convince me that this is a brilliant idea. And so one of the things that we decided to do is take the kids to a pet pal event that they have at the local pet stores. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is not my idea of a good time. But anyway, I'm going to do it because I want him to see me putting myself outside of my comfort zone. I want him to see me staying open to new ways of thinking. I want him to see me challenging my own fears, my own worries, my own mindsets, and really opening up the possibilities for something different, but also something potentially better. And so we went along to the Pet Pal event, and they were absolutely, my kids were in heaven, right? They were loving this. They were holding all these gerbils and hamsters and guinea pigs and all these different things. And I'm like, oh, anyway. I then decided, because one of the things that I really promised myself I was going to do was really going to try. I'm like, Michelle, just go there and show him that you are trying to take this idea on board and you're not closed to the ideas. You're not closed to the possibilities of what doors this can open up for you or them. And so we went along and they were enjoying themselves and petting, and we got to this wonderful bunny. So cute. This bunny was so adorable. I say a rabbit. My eldest son doesn't like me saying bunnies because he's like, they're not bunnies, mommy, they're rabbits. But I like the thought of saying bunnies. It just sounds so much more cuddly and cute. So anyway, we saw this adorable one. It was so cuddly and cute. And they said, Mommy, will you touch it? And I'm like, oh, don't really want to. But I did. And I really felt so proud of myself, because what that made me think is you are showing them what it means to think differently. Even if it doesn't lead to an immediate transformation, like I wasn't leaving the pet store with a pet, but it was this idea of staying open. And so just circling back to what I said at the beginning, taking a non-traditional approach to navigating a PhD journey really requires us to think differently, really requires us to challenge those old mindsets, those old traditional narratives that we have told ourselves over the years about what is important and what matters and where we should put our focus and our energy. And that's causing so much internal conflict and leading us to this valley of overwhelm and disillusionment. And so really it's about opening our minds to let in the joy of motherhood into the pursuit of scholarly goals. The two can coexist, and you don't have to be ashamed of one or the other. You don't have to be the mama who is feeling guilty and ashamed for pursuing scholarly goals and dreams. And you don't have to be the scholar who feels ashamed of your mama responsibilities. Like the two can coexist. And so anyway, saying all of that, I want to invite you to come join us inside our brand new program called Scholarly Mamas OPT. Now, this isn't about, there's no subject specific coverage within this program. So you could be doing a PhD in almost anything. You could still benefit from the program. But really, it's about just embracing this identity and getting the tools and strategies to help you navigate this journey well with kids in tow, and to get you writing, get you taking action, get you writing your first or next 10,000 words in a different way, taking a different approach and really staying open to a new mindset. Because really, we want you to win. I want you to win. I want you to achieve the goal that you want to achieve. I want to do whatever I can to help you do that. And I think one of the most helpful things that I can do is to create the space, the tools, the strategies, the community to empower you to be able to do that. Because believe me, when you win where it matters, everybody wins. Your kids win, your family wins, you win all round. And so we want you to achieve every success in this journey of yours. We want this to be a massive success for you. And so I really just wanted to share how I am staying open to challenging old, outdated mindsets and really embracing the possibilities of what could be if I allow those possibilities to happen, really creating space for better. And so I hope to see you inside OPT. We've got some signups already, and I hope that you can be one of them. I hope that you can join us in this first cohort of Scholarly Mamas OPT. I cannot believe we are at 100 episodes. This has been such an amazing journey of really intimate connection with you in this podcast week after week. And I am so grateful that I have been consistent. We've posted every single week. And even when there's a replay, because hello, your girl needs a break sometimes. So even when there's a replay, there's always something for you to come and take away from this podcast. We've got some exciting episodes coming up, and I look forward to continuing beyond 100 episodes in supporting you on your scholarly mama journey. So until next time, I am sending you, as always, lots of love and lots of gratitude, and I wish you the very best, and I cannot wait to see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, please head over to mrsmummyphd.com or scholarlymamas.com. If you want to do your PhD well without sacrificing yourself or those you love dearest, then you need your hands on all the ways that we can work together to transform your journey of scholarly motherhood from one of overwhelm, disillusionment and burnout to one of scholarly joy and purposeful success. Make sure you head over to mrsmummyphd.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I cannot wait to work with you. Remember, Mama, these are our journeys of becoming.